Bristol is home to nearly 30,000 Muslims. It is also home to Kulsoom Bashir. Since the bombings in July 2005, she has been on a mission to stop other Muslims turning to extremism. But for Kulsoom, it isn't just about stopping the would-be suicide bombers. For her, it is also about educating and empowering her fellow Muslims and creating an environment where extremism cannot breed. This morning, Kulsoom is holding a meeting with other members of the Bristol Muslim Women's Network, an organisation she helped set up with government funding.
If you do a Google search on Muslim women for images, you will get very negative images about Muslim women. And what we have been trying to do over the last 2 years is challenge each and every one of those.
One of the network's priorities is to build partnerships with local mosques to address issues of common concern, including increasing female participation.
Recently, my son came back from prayers and he said, "Oh, Amijan, Mum, the Imam told the ladies off for making a noise." And he said, "But it wasn't fair because they were behind a curtain and they couldn't see what was happening." I mean, can you imagine in a church, you know, curtaining off women because they're sexual objects and they might distract us from prayer? For goodness sake, would you say to Christians, you know, men and women can't worship because you might, you know, be distracted because of sexual thought? I mean, separating men and women is an innovation. We're accused of interpreting religion, reinterpreting religion. Just the fact that there are women now standing up and people find that disconcerting, and that is from the Muslim community. So that's why that segregation was there, but women were still there behind the men and had equal access. Once I was doing a talk on demystifying women in Islam, and a woman came in at the end and she'd missed the talk, but she shouted at me and said, "Oh, why are you here to say women don't have to wear the hijab?" And you know what, I didn't even have to answer her because all the other women, Muslim women in the room, said, "Actually, that's not what she said and you didn't hear the talk." People judge me for what I don't wear or what I do wear, but that's always going to come with the territory.
Is that what you're trying to get all?
I saw a post recently on Facebook that, you know, somebody had set up a discussion on women would look far more beautiful if they wore the hijab. Now, there was a bit of debate around that, and then what it came back with was this young man saying, well, they can't blame anybody if they get raped. That is so dangerous. That is where these are the debates that young men, third generation, my son's generation, are having with each other.
And I don't necessarily always agree. I think if somebody is wearing very little clothes, they have a responsibility for their own actions. Just, you know, and so does that mean that we have to wear a burqa, which is always misquoted in the media as it's actually in the niqab. Burqa is the bell-shaped thing that God knows what they have to wear that for, certainly not in the Quran. But I mean, the thing is, sorry,
causing controversy.
Sorry, but it's true. It's not in the Quran.
But personal choice. I mean, you know, again, it's personal choice. I mean, I think we've got an awful lot of social issues that were there, that were festering, and I always say that we were brushing under the prayer mat. We really haven't adapted to being Muslims in the UK in the 21st century, and we really have to think about the effect that that's having on our young people, on the issues that are affecting them on a day-to-day basis, really. What's happening with the relationship between the sexes, what's happening between the young people and the choices that they're making through education, issues of sexuality. We've got a long way to go before we're confident in being Muslims and being ourselves, really.
One campaign attracted more controversy than usual.
Those soldiers have blood on their hands, the blood of Muslims, men, women and children.
In an effort to stop the extremist rhetoric becoming the only voice of Muslims, Kulsoom, together with the Armed Forces Muslim Association, organised a visit to a war memorial. It wasn't long before the extremists let them know what they thought.
And those soldiers who have died in the battlefield, they will end up in the fire of hell, along with those kuffar that they love.
Videos appeared on YouTube and death threats on discussion forums.
You hand your brothers and sisters over to be ridiculed, to be mocked, attacked and murdered. And then you have the audacity to call yourself Muslims, that you are doing this in the name of your beliefs.
When we went up to the memorial service, that was... I was scared. Yeah. I was really scared, you know I was. The mother of the first Muslim soldier to die was there, and she was so overwhelmed.
A few of us felt outraged at Anjem Choudhury's promise to march through Wootton Bassett with empty coffins. We were just outraged that, you know, not because of foreign policy or whatever else was happening, but he was in a place where dead bodies were being brought back and those families were receiving those dead bodies. As we found that heartbreaking, that the grief of those families was being exploited to this extent, and we really felt that enough is enough. We wanted to do something to show that we grieve with you as women. We stand alongside you and condemn this individual. And in response to that, there were a couple of extremist organisations that made responses on YouTube condemning us to hellfire. And when we first saw them, and there were blogs as well, we were a little bit disturbed. But actually, you know, that there's strength in when you're working with other people and you feel that what you've done is the right thing, and that there were enough people out there as well that stood up for us and said, you know, it's about time that women stood up and have made this impact.
All right, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye everybody. Yeah, alaikum salam.
Tonight, Kulsoom with her colleague Shabana is running a workshop for young Muslims. Kulsoom knows that these youngsters are potential targets for extremist recruiters.
I have seen a swing towards perhaps just one form of Islam being practiced, where we're getting all these ideas that men and women can't sit together in a room and learn together. We can't sort of play music or listen to any kind of music, or we can't. But any, you know.
But I don't see that as extremism. I think. I don't know, sorry.
Conservatism?
No, not at all, because I'm now going to come across in this video, I'm sure, as being the one in the headscarf and the one who's like really Islamic. I think we're focusing too much on free mixing and the music issue.
I think the concern for extremism is extreme in itself.
I probably have come across people saying some quite what you might call extremist statements, but it's always been in a mosque. I've heard for sure imams saying things which would be classed as extreme and wouldn't be accepted by a lot of the Muslim population, and sort of a hatred of Western culture, which I do feel is being propagated around the mosques.
I think, you know, that there aren't many Muslims, hardly any, that I come across that would say it's right to blow yourself up. But what there is out there is an ideology which perhaps say, oh, that's terrible, but I can understand why they did it, because, you know, the troops are out there killing people, so it's all right. It's, you know, that if they feel that that's what they have to do, that's all right. Or it's all right to say women have no place outside in the home, or it's all right to say that our young people cannot listen to music, or, you know, they have to behave in a certain way, because you're moving towards that extremist ideology. Now, there's nothing wrong with being conservative. You've got absolutely every right to follow any school of thought that you want to, but the trouble is we don't have the faith leaders to support that conservative ideology. And the trouble is then a lot of young people go to the internet, and you'd find that perhaps that those that perpetuate that sort of conservative ideology are also the ones that are perpetuating this extremist ideology as well. So, you know, you can't vote because it's the infidels that vote, and it's the infidels that are killing our communities in other countries. It all gets mixed up, and particularly young people find it difficult to extract what is Islamic and what is not Islamic from that. So we have to find the right people to challenge those messages.
In 2008, a young Muslim convert from Bristol, Andrew Ibrahim, was jailed for a minimum of 10 years for planning to bomb a local shopping centre. Some in the group knew him.
My brother Isa, I met him, I knew him as a friend, and he said to me before that he was having problems. I think problem is that a lot of people just misinform each other to an extent, because he was brand new to this, he didn't know nothing about it. I think it's the people he hanged around with to an extent.
I don't even call them Muslims, I'm sorry, but those extremists, they're not even Muslims, and I almost see them as like the equivalent of like skinheads for the Muslim community. Yeah. You know what I mean, like BNP skinheads, and actually they don't really get Islam at all.
I think there's a denial of what's happening in the community with this extremist ideology. We face that threat here in Bristol. There was a young man, a convert to Islam, who was arrested and convicted. He was about to blow himself up. He was reported by the Muslim community, but the fact remains that he'd converted to Islam and hadn't got the support that he needed from the Muslim community. He faced a lot of issues that young Muslims are going through today. He was homeless. He was a drug user. He was searching for an identity. He was searching for a brand of Islam. He didn't get that from within Bristol, and he went to the internet. And I see, cases where I look on the internet and I see young men and women grappling for fatwas around what they're going through. So a young man who's very artistic and wants to express himself artistically is suddenly told that music is haram, and he's putting out requests saying, please somebody, who can give me fatwas that, about music, and then a few weeks later he'll put a post up to say music's haram. And I think, oh my goodness, what's happened between then and now? And then you can see that journey happening online in front of you, and he's not getting that guidance. I know he's not getting that guidance locally. He's getting his information from the internet and those that want to push him in their direction.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to meet you.
Are you optimistic about the future of Muslims in the UK, Vinny?
There are days when I feel totally down and devastated and don't want to work, in this field. It's like climbing a glass mountain. But there are other days when, a woman says that I've picked up the telephone and now I'm volunteering, or I've learnt this and I can tell my daughter that she's got every right to climb Everest as a Muslim woman, and why didn't I know that? Why didn't I give her that freedom? So yeah, I think there's definitely hope, God willing.